Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe. Welcome back to the 2 Comma Club podcast. Today, Chris and I are joined with Mike and AJ. Mike and AJ, we got to meet you guys at Bart Miller's event in Idaho. So what have you guys been up to since then?
Mainly just focusing in on our coaching business. We're focused in on our, some people know us as the Funnel Hub guys. And so we've been doubling down on some opportunities with ClickFunnels and getting some visibility out there. We're preparing to speak at the upcoming Funnel Hacking Live International in Las Vegas. So there's like 1,000 things going on. And in the meantime, we're just trying to hang out with our families and go on vacations and do all the stuff that we got into entrepreneurship in the first place for.
I love that. If you don't mind telling some of our listeners who may not know you guys kind of what you do and kind of you guys' background. You got several companies or several hats you guys wear, but just give us kind of a rundown or elevator pitch of what you guys do to get us familiar.
Yeah, well, I'd say the story starts way back in 2003, which is when I started a web and digital marketing agency. Actually, we just called it a web design company back then because digital marketing was not on the forefront of our minds. It was a time when Google was not the top search engine. We were not carrying around smartphones in our pockets. YouTube wasn't a thing. Facebook wasn't around. So safe to say that the landscape of online has drastically changed in our time in business. So today we own that agency that started in 2003 as a team of roughly 20 folks, built thousands of websites, hundreds of marketing campaigns for just about every type of business that you can imagine. In 2017, we started a coaching company to help other digital agency owners to grow. And we felt like we kind of slayed a lot of the dragons and figured out all the things. And we wanted to be the mentors to folks who were on that same journey. So launched that in 2017. End of 2020, AJ and I both stepped out of the day-to-day operations of the agency. And so we're really proud of the fact that we have a business that runs without us, led by an amazing leadership team that allows us to bring kind of our full attention to coaching. In 2019, we created a concept called Funnel Hub, which is a concept that we kind of brought into the ClickFunnels ecosystem. We were at a ClickFunnels meeting, and we basically convinced Russell Brunson, the king of funnels, why websites were indeed a part of the buyer journey, as opposed to him having previously proclaimed that websites were dead. We were a great story if you want to get into. Terrified to bring him that idea, but that's kind of put our faces and our ideas on the map as it relates to how to get more out of the funnels that you're running. So been 2 Comma Club award winners multiple times over. We have we're the bootstrap.com agency of the year, agency entrepreneur of the year award winners.
You're the first funnel games winner. You're
an agency funnel games winner. We're written up in a lot of Russell's books, multiple times speaker at Funnel Hacking Live. So it's been a crazy journey, and we're just getting started.
I love it. I love how, but if you guys, I want to AJ kind of get his 2 cents on how you guys met. I love your guys' story, how it kind of happened. What you needed, Mike, was kind of what he had, but it wasn't really the job description. So I love that story. How you guys met. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, 100%. So I was actually growing up in the corporate world, working for Intuit. I was managing the online communities for like TurboTax and Quicken and QuickBooks. And, I felt like a really small cog in this huge machine, right? And I didn't quite understand like how the work I was doing day to day was really impacting anything, And so I wanted to work in a smaller company, work more closely with the people that were helping. I saw an ad that was for a web strategist. Now, at the time, Mike was really looking for somebody that can get in and do sales. And I'll tell you what, if he would have put website salesperson or anything related to sales. Like there's no possible way I would have like applied for it at all. But the web strategist part is like, yeah, this is what I'm doing into it, right? I'm managing these online communities. I'm kind of controlling the strategy around how we're growing them. And I love web strategy. And if somebody had asked me for advice on, what they should do online, I was certainly able to give that. And so I applied for the position. Ended up joining Mike in 2008. So he was about 5 years in. And, it was really from the beginning, a really great match. Like there's a lot that I brought to it, bless Mike for getting the agency to the point he did straight out of college, without really having a whole lot of other jobs. Like I was able to come in with this corporate background and not really understanding how much I knew either, just about business acumen and running a business. And so when I was able to bring some of that structure into Anchor Wave, things really started to take off, and after the beginning of just doing some really basic sales to like some of our existing clients, going to their website and just looking at what was going on and making some suggestions, I finally got an opportunity to actually do a full sale for a website. And it was for a, local, it was a team of brain surgeons, right? There's like 18 of these brain surgeons that work together. And I always had this running joke because I'd go with Mike to a lot of the proposals that he had. And Mike just had this kind of upper limit of like $6,000. Like every single thing he bid was $6,000, right? And I'm like, we just finished talking to all these brain surgeons, and I'm like, let me guess, you want to do a website for $6,000? He's like, how'd you know? I'm like, because they all are. We're not going to charge $6,000. Like, did you just walk in this building? It's like
Taj Mahal.
Yeah, it's an amazing building, right? And there's like artwork that's probably worth more than $6,000 or $20,000, sitting on the wall. I'm like, I think we can raise that. He's like, well, what are we going to do different? I go, nothing. We're not going to do anything different. We're just going to change the price to something higher. And he's like, well, you're going to propose it. You're going to pitch it. And I'm like, fine, I'll do it. Because the numbers didn't scare me, because when I was hiring people to help out at Intuit, it seemed like anything we asked them for help with was 40 grand, so I was kind of just used to seeing bigger numbers. And so I went ahead and pitched that. We got it. And Mike's like, maybe you should just take over selling all of the stuff now. And that's what we did. And it was a super cool journey. Like Mike said, we had a lot of fun growing the agency to where it was. And, eventually that transitioned into us wanting to explore other things and falling in love with funnels and, getting on this pathway that you hear about now.
That's amazing. That really hits a chord with me, because I have this theory where people are basically a combination of their understanding of what's possible and what's not. And they do that through the life experiences that they've had. So when you are used to seeing $6,000 as the cap, it's like you're going to act like that is the cap, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you've seen 40,000 as the cap, you're going to act like 40,000 is the cap. When I was in banking, I saw accounts that people were opening lines of credit where the average line of credit was $8 million for personal expenses. Wow. That'll really crack your mind. It's like, yeah, it's like, wow, what's really possible here? And some of them were as high as 150 million. So it was like absolutely mind-boggling. So that's one of the things that I love about what we're doing in this podcast, is talking about kind of those numbers that are possible and are the reality. Like you guys hit the 2 Comma Club multiple times over, and that is basically $1 million in revenue over and over and over, right? Which is fantastic. So kind of the question I have is, once you guys started building the idea of your business and everything, how is it that you guys were beginning to get discovered and kind of put yourselves out there so that way you could generate the leads that you were ultimately working for?
Yeah, I think the way that we started with all of this was chasing money, right? And we when we got introduced to funnels, Mike and I are like, dude, we could go so fast with this because we have an agency and we have a team, and all these other solopreneurs are trying to do all this stuff on their own, and like we could really do it. And we joined Russell's mastermind group. And I remember there was just somebody in there that was doing like lead generation. They were completely crushing it. They went up there and shared their numbers, and Mike and I are like, dude, they're making that much money doing just lead generation. That's what we should do. And so we did that. And guess what? Like we almost put ourselves out of business because we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know about the industries that we were doing this in. There were things that we needed to understand about that to really make that work. And I think whenever you're chasing money and you start to hit those roadblocks that come inevitably, and running any type of business, if you're not passionate about that business, you're not going to be able to get past that, right? So I would say we probably technically got our 2 Comma Club award with funnels like we got a quarter of the way there, like 3 or 4 times with a business that we decided like wasn't fun or wasn't the right direction. And then we'd start something else and we're like, oh, we don't like that either. Then we do something else. We don't like that either. And all those times we were chasing money instead of chasing impact, right? And what we really knew and what we really should have done from the beginning was agency coach, right? Like we had built something successful that, a lot of people aim to do when they're starting their own agency. And we're just a few steps ahead of those people. And it's easy to be able to give them all those things that we learned, right? We spent at that time 15, 16 years trying to figure this stuff out. It's like, now I could just take this stuff and give it to somebody else. Like, we didn't have that. Like, there was no real coaches in our space when we were kind of growing up. We'd hire these general business coaches, but they never really quite understood what we did. They're like older guys who just didn't get the digital marketing side of things. And we got some value from them 100%, but we wanted to create something for agency owners that would be a lot easier for them to implement, right? Not theoretical stuff they needed to apply to their business, but strategies that they could just rubber stamp and get going in their business right away.
That's awesome. One of the things I really like about you guys is your thought process and just how you nurtured things and how you guys come with Funnel Hub and just how you kind of find and help people nurture and find out. And Mike, by the way, I saw an old podcast to you. You're like 8th on the Mike Schmidts. I just want you to know. So Mike Schmidt has you wore out about the first 5 pages. So, but I like how you guys took that. For me, that's how my mind works, is like, hey, how can we just take something that's really complex in the world, make it simple? And for you guys, you guys do an awesome job. Like, I think Funnel Hub's a home run. Like, everybody should have that, because like you said, you can't control a lot of traffic, but what you can control is searches. And I think that's brilliant. And what you guys are doing is brilliant. And I think your first sale out of the bat, you crushed it. I don't want to say who you sold to. I want to hear you guys tell the story, but how you did Funnel Hub and how it took off for you guys. And to me, that's just how my mind works. So for you, I understand that was obviously a home run business that you guys were crushing it. So if you don't mind sharing, that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So, it's funny because, Russell is kind of has been known for a long time as the king of funnels. And he also ran a campaign that was, all about, the death of the website. Now, 2 guys who have a web and digital marketing agency, hearing their mentor tell them that the thing that they do quite a lot of is dead, is kind of weird, right? We were at a Funnel Hacking Live where they have a well-known ad that he was running with they actually had a funeral for the websites. And at the end of the thing, Russell tells the entire group of 5,000 people in the audience, all right, you guys need to tweet out websites are dead. And we turned to our team just to make sure that they understood that was not a message for them. Like, literally days preceding Funnel Hacking Live, we were selling websites. Could you imagine if I sold you a website and then the next message you get from me is like, websites are dead? Like, our team understood that wasn't the messaging. So we were in this kind of interesting position where we understood where this thing fit into the whole funnel thing, but a lot of the people in the funnel space weren't. So rewind to when we first joined Russell's Inner Circle. We went to Boise, Idaho in January. And if you've never been to Boise in January, it's cold and it's dark, right? We showed up to the meeting early because we were nervous and it was dark outside, and we spent a half a day in the meeting room and it was dark when we got out, right? So it's like we showed up early and there's name cards on all of the places, right? Like, the organizers weren't even there yet, but we found our name cards, sat down, looked around, and we did what I think a lot of people with time on their hands and access to the internet would do. We started Googling names, right? And started looking up, who are the people that are here? And in a lot of cases, we found nothing about them. Now, supposedly these are the top marketers in the world, paying lots of money to be in a room, sharing smart ideas. We can't find them, right? Or we found something that's unclear what they do. Or we found, okay, they clearly have this big $25,000 event or mastermind, but what do they do, right? And or we found their competitors in some cases, right? And so we're kind of puzzled that folks would be so high stature yet be so invisible on the internet. So we kind of sat with that idea for a while until we realized that there's a problem here, right? This seed of an idea turned into a presentation that we did years later, when it all kind of clicked for us. Standing in front of the room, in front of Russell, in front of the likes of Lady Boss, right? Brandon Kalen Poulin, standing from Alex Hermosi, right? It was before he had the big mustache and big muscles. It was like baby Hermosi, right? We were in the room with folks who are now that very much household names who they were very much not back then. And we showed them a couple key pieces of information. We actually anonymized the data we figured out and did a search. We figured out how many searches are happening for these people's names and brands, right? So like, their brand name or their courses or their personal names, right? And in some cases, there was millions of searches per year, thousands in a lot of cases, or hundreds of thousands in other cases. And we say, listen, these are all the people who are looking for you by name, by your brand names, maybe even throw in the word scam or review or things like that on that. And I'll challenge you all to do that search right now. What are they finding, right? And the room was like silent. You could hear a pin drop, and it's like. And what we showed them is that if you're not in control of what shows up, you're throwing money out the window, right? In fact, you may even be paying for advertising that it's benefiting some of your competitors who are showing up and do know that they should be there. Mm-hmm. And so that led to an opportunity for us to, by the way, after that meeting, everyone was like coming up to us and like, who is who? Which one was I?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was really eye-opening for folks. So with that idea in mind, we actually built the first Funnel Hub. Funnel Hub is a website. At the end of the day, it's a website with a very specific content strategy. The number one job of a Funnel Hub is to get people from that site back into your funnel, right? Because the funnel is the number one place where a lead can turn into a conversion. But just because a funnel is the number one place for that doesn't mean a website isn't a part of the journey. So we built a prototype for a guy that a lot of folks know, Stephen Larson. At the time, if you searched for Stephen Larson, you'd find the psychologist and author, Stephen Larson, which is not the king of promo and content and all that good stuff. The guy that we all know and love. So we built him a Funnel Hub. And the purpose was to take over what was showing up when people were searching for him, his brands, his courses, all those things, but also direct them back in the funnel. He saw a 500% increase very quickly. And by the way, this isn't any new traffic, and any new ads. This was existing traffic already looking for him. So the coolest part of the story that I know that you want to hear is when we took the idea to Russell, right?
Yeah. So we ended up setting a meeting with Russell, and we're like, gosh, we're going to walk him through this idea. We're going to present Funnel Hub to him. And we were super nervous. Like, we thought he might kick us out of the inner circle or something because he was so adamant about websites being dead, but we decided to go with it anyway. And I remember just a few slides in, he said, hey, can I stop you for a minute? And I'm like, oh crap.
Here it comes.
Like, he's pissed. And he's like, I don't know where you're going with this, but I already want to give you money. And I'm like kicking Mike under the table. Like, we didn't even plan to like really pitch him on it, but I'm like, if Russell wants to give me money, well, we can figure out a way to take it, right? That's the easy part. And so we continued on through the rest of the presentation. And by the end, he's just like, yeah, 100%. I need one of these. He pulls out his wallet. He's like, do you take American Express? Do you take Visa? And we're like, yes, we can take any of those. And he ended up being our first paying client for a Funnel Hub. So as you can imagine, as we launched that, pretty much everybody that was in Inner Circle was like knocking down our door to get one of these things built because it was a very big missing component to their business. When people are going through your funnel and they're getting to that buying decision and they haven't made a clear decision yet, and they want to do a little bit more due diligence, they go and search online, right? And if they don't find something that's positive, well, then the credit card's going to go back in their wallet, right? So many of these people just weren't in control of that and missing out on a big opportunity. Since then, Russell's gone on to say that, you shouldn't even launch a funnel without a Funnel Hub in place because you're throwing away money, right? And, I'll fast forward to after we built him the Funnel Hub. One morning we got this Voxer message from him and he's like, I'm super excited. I want to talk to you guys about something, but it's super hush hush.
Can't tell anybody. Only Todd, his business partner, and Dave, business partner, know about this.
And so he's like, we're completely rebuilding ClickFunnels. It's going to be ClickFunnels 2.0, and we want to include Funnel Hub in there. And he's like, would you guys be okay with that? I'm like, yeah, I think we'd be okay with that, right? And so we went on to partner on a course with him, Funnel Hub Launchpad, that teaches people how to implement that. They did build it into ClickFunnels. We're continuing to develop some cool stuff with them that'll be coming down the line here as well. But that's what we've spoken about, at Funnel Hacking Live now 5 times, and we'll be speaking about it again this year, because I still feel like not enough people know about it, right? And all we've really done with Funnel Hub is we've taken all of the strategy that Russell explains in Expert Secrets, right? How to persuade people, how to build, movement, how to be that attractive character, all those things that we read that book and we learned, but we probably didn't put that anywhere anyone can see it, right? Like we may have gone through the exercise and they're living in a Google Drive, but they really need to be out there where people that are your prospects or people that are checking you out can read and feel drawn to you, right? And so that's what the Funnel Hub really represents. It should check off all those boxes that somebody needs to feel super comfortable making that purchase, or repelling them too. If they're not the right fit, and they're not somebody that should be part of your movement.
Yeah, the mistake that people make is they're like, oh, it's just a website.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of like saying, well, a Ferrari is just a car, right? Or to use more Russell language, it's kind of like saying the perfect webinar is just a webinar, right? It's the content strategy that's there, which is why we've, spent so much time educating and focusing on people. Here's how to build it the way that gets people to find it, number one, and number two, get them back into the funnel so that way they can then engage with you from a financial standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's fantastic. I absolutely love that story. That's amazing. You guys have done very well with the Funnel Hub, obviously, having Russell being your first client and everything. That's fantastic. And blowing it up the way you have. I myself actually took some of those trainings back in the day and can confirm that they are very good. So with that said, I know that a lot of the thing that makes websites unique that you guys have touched on is the fact that there's a lot of search traffic that goes to them. And so there's a lot of, SEO and things that are involved in it. But simultaneously, the other thing that I'm curious about is like, do you guys have any strategies that you can talk on in terms of nurturing people when they do come to your website, so that way you can actually begin to build a relationship in that respect when they do land on it after searching for you and things?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you have multiple opportunities to get in front of someone, hopefully, right? If they're landing on your website, there's a good chance they're trying to figure out who you are and what you do. AJ says it's kind of like an attorney that's searching for information, right?
Evidence, yeah.
Evidence, right? They don't care if you're guilty or not, but they're just trying to understand what it is, and they're going to come to a conclusion either way. Mm-hmm. And so, the strategy is getting someone on the Funnel Hub is the first part, but there's kind of two categories, I think, when it comes to follow up and nurture, that I think a lot of people, they know about, but they don't understand how it could really help them. One is simply engaging from an email perspective of having a conversation. Now, in our community, we call it feed and fish, right? So with your email list, you want to provide value in terms of feed, and then you want to fish in terms of making offers. Now, most people just are, when they're sending out emails, all they're doing is they're fishing all the time. Or as our friend Yada Golden, who's an amazing copywriter and just marketer in general, she says they treat their list like a booty call. Right? And I love that, because it's like, we're all on lists like that. And maybe sometimes we've been guilty of doing that, right? So in our world, and Russell calls it like the Seinfeld soap opera sequence. And we have a very specific methodology that we use in Feed and Fish when it comes to building relationships. And we could dive into that more if you want to. So email's one category of things. The other side is simply retargeting, or like we like to call it boomerang ads, right? Like, how do we boomerang them back to us? We've all experienced that. I'm looking at this watch, or I'm looking at these shoes, or I'm looking at this thing, and suddenly it's following me around the internet everywhere. Like, why wouldn't we do the same thing for every business out there, right? It's like you've done all this hard work to identify the person who's in your target market, who's in your world, who's orbiting around you, has attended your webinars, who's opted in for your stuff, has been to your website like 2 or 3 times, and is like reading your emails and thinking about you and watching your social and all that. And then you don't very simply just put more things for them to engage with, right? Why? Why would you not do that? It's such a simple strategy. I think those are really 2 key things that, as you have the Funnel Hub, having that follow-up piece and having that nurture is so important. In our world, we say that the businesses that win are the ones that know how to warm up and nurture their own businesses. Here's what most people fail to understand and realize, that every lead on the planet goes from cold to warm to hot, right? Mm-hmm. But most businesses just run those hot leads, right? They're just waiting for them to be warmed up. If you're in control of the warming mechanism that warms up these leads, well, guess what? There's a lot of cheap and available, abundant leads out there. Mm-hmm. And if you just know how to warm them up, then you could have as many hot buyers as you could ever want. But instead, what happens? People, they do lead generation, and they say the leads suck. Newsflash: all leads suck. All of them, 100%. That's actually like the definition of a lead is a sucky, potential person you could do business with. Why do they suck? Because they're cold. Because all cold leads suck. So you can either just give up and just be like, oh, that lead generation doesn't work, or you can put yourself in charge of warming those leads, and suddenly those leads now turn into what you actually want, which is a prospect who's someone who actually could be doing business with you, right? And so, the whole idea is that, we think that we're one funnel away, just put it out there and it's going to be amazing and you're going to truly transform your life and, happily ever after. But that's not the way it works, right? You're spending good money on people who don't care about you, don't even like you, not even sure what you do, forgot about you the minute they came off your ad, and you're wondering why it's not working. Well, yes, have a good funnel and one that converts and a good offer, but then, take us for example in our early webinars, right? We were running a webinar, so we did our first 2 Comma Club award. We had as a 997 offer, $1,000, and if we had 100 people in the room, we would probably sell 10 of those people, right? 10% conversion rate for people who showed up, or 3% of registrants or something like that. Mm-hmm. What about all the 97% of people who didn't buy or didn't show up? Do we just throw them in the garbage, right? I mean, that's literally what we did. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what most people do. And they're like, okay, well, I'll just keep on running the ads. And guess what? We got our first 2 Comma Club award doing that, right? We sold $1 million in 14 months, and we threw away the rest of the leads. Threw them away. That's it, right? And what could be possible, and how would our lives have been different at that time if we would have had some strategy to wake up the other people who expressed interest but just didn't follow through, right? So that's the idea.
I like the fact that you guys add value, but you look at every lead as value. You know what I mean? You look at every lead as a customer. Like you said, it's not their fault they didn't buy. It's your fault they didn't buy. I think it's kind of how you guys, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I think we talked to a lot of marketing folks, a lot of agency folks. I think you guys have a lot of value because of your experience and because of what you guys have done, which is awesome. But not everybody has that same experience, and they're selling stuff that isn't always of value, in my opinion.
Yeah, if I could share one idea,
go ahead, please.
I think is so there's a belief that we have that I think that would help other people to adopt, that would help you get some of the kind of results that we've seen, which is believing that when somebody raises their hand and asks for help, it's on us to keep on extending the hand for help, even though they may not be responding to that, right? So the belief and the way that I made this straight in my brain is, imagine you are on a boat and, John, you fall off. John, you're probably a great swimmer, but let's just imagine for the story that you're not.
Yeah.
And you're struggling to keep your head above water and you say, Mike, help. and I'm like, oh, John needs some help. And so I try to reach for your hand, but your head goes beneath the water. And then guess what? You stopped asking for help. And so I'm like, well, he's not asking me for help anymore. And, if he wanted help, he'd probably be still asking me for help. And he probably found somebody else to help him. And, he probably thought I wasn't good enough to help him here. So yeah. All right. So I'll just move on to the next one. Meanwhile, you're drowning and whatever. No, I'm going to get my ass in the water. I'm going to find you. I'm going to pull you up and I'm going to get your head above water. I'm going to help you. Right. Mm-hmm. The thing is, by some miracle, you asked me for help. You found it within the time in your day and how busy you are to ask me for help, right? And then you moved on to the rest of your day, and we didn't connect. And now, do you now not need help, or is it that you got busy, right? Like, now it's beholden on me to go help you, ask you and follow up with you. And you can then tell me, Mike, I found the help or I did that. But if I'm assuming that you don't want me or don't like me or don't whatever, right, that's on me, right? So it's my job. It's our job as marketers, as business people, to assume that if somebody asks for help once, that just because they didn't ask again, their head just might be underwater. And we need to stay on it. So that's a core belief that I think that we've worked out for ourselves to understand where we need to be. And you know what? Somebody can tell me to go away at any point in time. And I'm not saying be disrespectful. I'm not saying be like overbearing, but I am saying be persistent. And I'm saying understand that you have value that this person needs. And they saw it for a moment. And then it just as quick as it came, it went away.
That's an absolutely phenomenal analogy that you gave there about drowning and everything. Because I know that, especially in the entrepreneurial space, like a lot of people in the beginning, they are drowning. There are so many new skills that they have to adopt and learn. And when they ask for it the first time, like they could be in a spot where maybe in that specific moment they have the opportunity. And if they don't get the help, within literally minutes, they're all of a sudden realizing like, oh, well, here's all these false beliefs that are creeping in. And now I'm not going to take action. And now I'm not going to do the thing that I need in order to actually move on and see the success that I'm trying to see. So I commend you for that, that approach, because I know on the other end of it, where you're sending all those follow-ups and everything, it feels daunting, and it feels honestly kind of like pesky. It's like I don't want to be so persistent to somebody who's not responding, but at the same time, when you look at it in that light, they probably still have that problem and they really need it. They really need it solved. So it's really fascinating about that concept. So then this is how you guys nurture, and you do discovery through search engines and things of that nature. And then the other question I have is like, how are you actually capturing that contact information that you're able to go and follow up with these people?
Yeah, usually we like using things like lead magnets. We like doing a lot of webinars. So we usually have something that they need to opt into, and we can give them a little bit of value in advance to just kick off that relationship, right? Like one of the other really core concepts that we talk about, teach about, is this idea of the trust tipping point, right? And it's that moment in time where somebody's desire for something turns into absolute certainty that they need it, right? And the thing is that everybody's trust tipping point is a little bit different. Have you ever been on that webinar and like we're barely a few slides in and someone's like, just send me the buy link, I'm sold, right?
Well, that was Russell when we showed it to him, right?
Exactly.
Like he didn't want to wait to the end. He's like, how do I buy?
Yeah, he's a abundance based thinker. If something's feeling right, he's pulling out his card, he's ready to go, right? You've got other people that have been burned, right? That have maybe bought something and it didn't work and it was a ripoff. And now, man, their trust tipping point is like way up here. And you've got to do a lot to overcome their skepticism, right? And so maybe the webinar wasn't enough, or maybe they got to the webinar, end of the webinar, and they're like, man, this sounds amazing, but I'm going to go check out check this guy out. And, maybe they just need to go search for you, see that you show up and the site that comes up looks professional, legit, and that's enough, right? Or maybe they need to read a case study or testimonial that sounds like somebody that had the same exact problem that they have and how you solve that, right? Or maybe they just need to learn more about us personally and our hero's journey and where we're at and what we believe in and what we don't believe in and those types of things to fill that connection. That's we've all done that, right? I'm sure you've searched on Amazon and you're kind of looking through all the products and you're reading through some reviews and you see that one that's like, oh gosh, this guy has the same exact issue I'm having. And then you're practically like running up to the buy button, right? Because that's when you've reached or surpassed your trust tipping point. And so if you think about it that way and think about the idea that, man, you got somebody that's like inching their way up to that trust tipping point, and then they go online and start doing research, like what are the other things that they might want to see in order for them to get past that, right? Or what are the little pebbles that you're going to throw to knock them off the fence, to get them to take that next step with you. And so that's kind of what the Funnel Hub is all about, is trying to give as much of that social proof, as much as that credibility as we can, so that we can turn more of those people that are on the fence into buyers.
I love that. One of the things that John and I talked to a lot of folks about is hitting that next level from the solopreneur to entrepreneur. Obviously, I see you guys more entrepreneurs. What's really turning you guys on now? Is it the coaching program? What gets you guys excited about? Is it helping others? How is it bringing value and kind of seeing people grow?
Yeah. I think AJ and I are both put on this earth to just help and serve people, especially in the entrepreneurial space. Today, I mean, early on, it was about helping the local business owner, right, in our backyard, in our community. And we have a company that does that in an amazing way every single day now, which is awesome. And the next logical step for us was helping the other agency owners who were struggling, right? And so we have a business that does that. And so if someone's a digital marketer and helps clients with digital marketing, or helps them get their clients create more customer activity, like we have courses and programs and communities where we help with lead generation, inertia, all that kind of stuff, right? And then, like, being the entrepreneurs and just humans, I think that we all kind of go through as we continue to grow. And we inside of the Funnel Hub space, we've helped a lot of funnel driven businesses with a lot of the things we've talked about here today. So AJ and I are, I don't know that we set out to necessarily be this, but we're funnel experts, and we understand business strategy at a level that I think we're both very proud of, and we'd love helping people get unstuck from where they're at, or help them transition out of the. That's another theme that I think I see a lot is you're doing one thing now, and you've learned about funnels and marketing, and you're trying to get to the next thing, and it's like, how do they transition into that? So it's kind of like a superpower. It's like, somebody told me recently, it's like, you guys are like surgeons, where you figure out what's the offer, what's the thing, and then here's what you're supposed to build to make it happen, right? And like, we just have this, like, it's like Neo in the Matrix. Like, we see like how all this stuff fits together, and so I think the more time we get to do that kind of stuff and play with entrepreneurs and help them, and whether they be an agency owner or what, like creating solutions for that is very much in line. Like Funnel Hub came because it was a problem that we were facing and seeing a lot of other folks. And it's like, nothing feels better than to say, hey, that thing you're struggling with, here's this solution to that. And I don't know why we have the gift to give that, but it's something that's been a repeating pattern inside of our businesses again and again. It's just, the more days we're doing that stuff, that's the more fun stuff. It's the days that I forget that I'm supposed to be doing that that aren't as fun.
Right. So you guys are similar in a lot of ways. I see that. Like, once you guys feed off each other, AJ, what's kind of your differences? Like, what's kind of the one or two things you're super strong at and you focus on, and then what's one or two things you see Mike is strong at and you kind of focus on? I definitely see you guys got a lot of energy.
Yeah. Probably the biggest thing is I love spreadsheets. I love numbers. I love finances. I love projecting, that kind of stuff, and planning all of that. And Mike's not a fan of any of that,
So his love language is spreadsheets. My love language is Google Slides.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's probably the biggest difference. But other than that, man, we can work really well together. Mike's an exceptional copywriter, but I can help brainstorm concepts or ideas or stories that, he can then take and make amazing, right? We're really good at just like bouncing ideas back and forth off of one another till we get something that's like great, right? Like, one of the things that Mike and I tried to do when we went into agency coach was like really separate ourselves from one another, and like, hey, you're going to handle these things, I'm going to handle these things. And it sucked. It was like the worst. I think we both were like creating stuff that was like kind of crappy, right? But there's just something magical about when we're able to sit down with one another and really create something from a place of passion, and we're being led, whenever you're creating something under the pressure of like, I need this to make money. We found that that's like, when we've created the crappiest stuff, when it's just been like, man, I feel like working on this. Let's knock this out today. That's been like the best stuff that we've been able to create.
That's awesome. That really goes to show, like, when people are being, we call it transactional, like they just simply want to make that sale because, life happens. People get into bad circumstances, and then they have bills they have to pay, and et cetera. Like, it sucks when that happens, but I don't know. It's like there's some kind of energy with those kind of offers and those things that you pull together where it's like, it's not so much about who it's going to, it's more about me, I, and like, it shows in the quality of the work. It shows in, the customer experience and all of that stuff. And so, that makes me want to ask then, like, in terms of, everybody who goes into business, we all have struggles. And it's the largest learning curve that I can think of to date in my life, where there's so many different skills you have to have, so many different experiences you have to have, so many hard lessons you have to learn the hard way. And like, what were some of those hard lessons that you guys learned along the way that if you shared with somebody today, would have saved you guys either a lot of time, money, or effort back in the day?
Well, how much more time do we have? Just kidding. But yeah, there's a lot of them. And I mean, there's a couple of things. So it being okay to take a shortcut and learn from somebody else is something like early days, it's like I'm a lone wolf. A lot of my pride and my like self-worth came out of the idea that it all came from my brain and like nobody else helped with that. Right. And if somebody else helped, it like didn't count as much. I still struggle with that sometimes, but it's like getting the shortcut is huge. Putting yourself in a room with people who are either doing the thing that you want to do or at very least a support network for you when stuff goes sideways. And, AJ says all the time that he believes that business is the purest form of personal development that exists, right? Mm-hmm. We are constantly putting ourselves in situations that just are likely to fail, likely not to work, right? Yeah, somehow we have to kind of keep on moving forward with that. And I think it's a getting comfortable with the idea of failure. It's never fun going through it, but then just really taking the lesson, right? It's like we don't lose, we learn, right? And really embodying that as a truth, even though as recently as last week, I'm like fighting that idea, right? It's like, no, this is going to be it. This is the end of me. I'm over, or whatever. It's like, but it's easy, obviously, on a podcast and sitting in a from a zoomed out view to be like, of course, this is the thing. But I think the reality is, it's just like, what is the conversation happening inside your head? What's the story you're telling yourself? And how can you put yourself in with people who understand that idea that there are things we tell ourselves, and then be able to be like, here's what I'm thinking, and here's what my fear is, or here's why I'm being a grumpy pants, and like help me get out of my way with that.
Mm-hmm. I like that. One of the things I see you guys is looking at, obviously there's resistance. We all have that. This is one of the things that keep popping up. I talk to people. We're just trying to help folks in our business. And I know you guys are kind of over that hump now in your business. I love that. But just helping people, I don't know how to get a lot of people over that. I got some ideas, but I wanted to hear your guys' input. When folks want to grow or scale with the who, not how principle, if you're always doing the how do I fix it, how do I do it all as a solopreneur, getting to that next level, obviously you guys have hired a team. You guys are kind of the creatives now. I love that. But what would you say to somebody who's really having that path or just that resistance of like get to the next level, they got to let some things go or hire some people or collaborate? What would you guys say? How would you guys kind of overcome that, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, there's a couple things I think there. There's the idea that just because I can doesn't mean I should, right? And like we see this all the time in the agency space where the agency owner comes in, and I think some agency owners are some of the most resourceful people in the world, because at least when we were growing up, there wasn't school for this. There was everyone was self-taught, right? We had to like figure it out. And that trait has kind of stayed that way, right? Like they work with somebody, or maybe they're doing a proposal and someone says, I know you do websites, but can you help with my Facebook ads? And you don't, right? But you're like, yeah, because I know I'll figure it out, And when you do that sort of thing, you just are creating a bigger spider web that you're trapped in of the only things that you could do, right? Because you're not creating things in a way that you can easily hand them off. Mike and I refer to these as like snowflake projects, right? They're projects that only I could do because they're not like anything else I've sold before, and it's something different or it's something new. And I'm saying yes to everything, right? When I should be saying no sometimes, right? Or I'm pricing my services in a way that it's enough for what I want to make, right? But then when I run out of my time to sell and I want to get help, there's not enough there to be able to actually hire the help, right? Because there's not a big enough margin there. So one of the things that we teach, at least with these agencies that are early on, is like, you need to have your pricing at the level that you could afford to delegate if you needed to, right? And even if you're not doing that right now, trust me, it's really hard to unravel that when you're at that point where I've got no more time and I've got no money and like I'm stuck, right? And we believe that, business owners should not be the one responsible for doing majority of the work for the business. Like, imagine if a realtor had to build every house that they sold, right? And that's what we see over and over and over again in the agency space, right? I'm going to sell this website, then I'm going to spend the next month building it. Then I'm going to sell this one, and that's what creates these cycles of feast and famine that never end. The other key principle to this, I think, is an intense focus on recurring revenue. Right. Recurring revenue is like what freed us from our agency. You know, when Mike and I were really, really stuck in the agency and knew that we couldn't step away with it, it's because we had no recurring revenue. And every single month we had to go out there and fight for the money that we needed for payroll. Right. We're doing Hail Marys and there's all this pressure to produce this money. And, you know, it wasn't until we realized that recurring revenue was what was keeping the business stable, right? I used to think that going out there and getting these huge website projects that were like 50 grand, 60 grand, 70 grand, 100 grand were what was really keeping our business going. Really, those were things that were hurting our business, right? When I looked at our top customers for the past few years, it was never any of those one-time projects. It was always, you know, the local dentist that had been paying us for 5 years, $2,000 a month, you know, the orthodontist that was paying us, the HVAC guy that's paying us like that. And so when we shifted to really focusing on recurring revenue, that's what made it easy to begin to delegate and to make investments and to hire people, because it wasn't based off of us needing to go out there and get more sales. You know, we got to a point where our payrolls paid off and our expenses were paid off the first of every month, right? So anything else on top of that was gravy. And when you're in that position, you can choose to focus on the things like we talked about that we're passionate about, that we want to work on, right? When we're not, and we have to fight for the money, we're forced to work on the things that are revenue generating, which might not be the right thing that your business needs at that time.
I'm so glad you said
I know.
recurring
I want to
revenue.
take AJ to all our appointments because we say the same thing every day to people. Earlier, that's the same conversation we have, but he would have the same conversation.
And it's funny because that's a mistake that we made again when we got into the funnel space, right? Like nobody was talking about this. People are talking about it now, but everybody had a 997 product, and we're like, you mean 997 a month? Because we're used to selling like big SEO packages, digital marketing packages, and they're no one time. And we're like, we just kind of adopted it because that's what everybody was doing. But we got to the point where we had created that same type of business, right? We're like, if we stopped running ads or we stopped doing anything, we didn't have a business. And so we've recently just started to kind of refocus our energy on, you know, continuity, recurring revenue, because we've learned that lesson before. We know that's what makes it easy to run this type of business, right? And it might be a little bit slower at first, but it's what builds that stability that I think business owners are really, really, truly desire, right?
Yeah, I'm so glad you guys brought up recurring revenue. Like, this is the key metric, in my opinion, that allows entrepreneurs to get what they truly desire, which is to have time freedom and the ability to do what it is that they want to do. I have this concept that I talk about all the time, and I don't shut up about it because I'm super passionate about it. And I call it time till broke or time till bankruptcy, depending on the context. And basically, you take your cash savings, divide it by your monthly expenses, subtract your monthly expenses by recurring revenue, and all of a sudden, you know how much time you have until you're broke. But if your monthly recurring revenue exceeds your monthly expenses, you're free, right? Now you don't have to worry about things. You only take on the projects you want to take on, all of that fun stuff. So tell me the first time that you guys got to experience recurring revenue in one of your offers, and kind of when you it's such a joyous moment when you get it the first time. The next month you get hit with that Stripe notification where you get the recurring revenue again, and you're like, oh, hey, that's from last month. Like, I appreciate that.
So. Yeah. Well, just to touch on one thing you said, you know, what we say is, we've borrowed this from other people who say something similar. Our take on it is financial freedom being an equation is monthly recurring revenue being greater than expenses. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, is that if you can build your monthly recurring revenue greater than what your expenses are and what you planned profit is and all that stuff, like life changes drastically. And so it's just simply knowing what are your expenses every month. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the goal at a minimum, what we need to get to. And it simplifies everything else. But to answer your question, so I first experienced recurring revenue, like selling web hosting in my agency. And I remember my dad early on, who's always been a big supporter of my businesses. Like, he'd always ask me, and I'd see him like, oh, what's your recurring revenue after that? And I never really got it, because like I was selling it $200 a year, and it like didn't feel like it was like really anything substantial. But it wasn't until we started selling websites, we had this kind of a big epiphany. We're like, well, why don't we sell websites as a recurring subscription as opposed to just one-time fixed bid projects? And we're like, well, people really pay for it that way? Is that really true? And Yes, they will. Because think of it this way: there's, cash flow is the name of the game, and businesses, many of which we've met, would rather pay us $500,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month than come up with 30, 40, 50 grand right now, right? They're just happy to have that baked into their cash flow, and so we just gave them that opportunity, and so we would, the big like takeaway was like, we just turned this $8,000 one-time project into a $24,000 contract. $8,000 or $24,000, which one do you want? Right? Now, the trick was for us, we had to manage our cash flow because we were used to getting an $8,000 chunk, right? And now we're getting a $2,000 chunk, but we're getting it every month, right? And, but it was enough for us to be like, well, let's figure this one out, and we had strategies of, okay, how are we going to sell this and who are we proposing these to? So that way we can manage what we need cash requirements, but then start to roll into the type of business where we're just stacking recurring revenue. It's like if you ever looked at your bank account and all the debits, right? And you're like, how the hell did I spend that much money? And you add it up, you're like, this is wrong. Of course the bank's wrong. No, the bank's not wrong. It's just that small amounts add up very quickly, right? Turns out. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? It works the other way too. Small amounts of recurring revenue that people paying you adds up pretty darn quickly, and it can make a pretty life-changing, impact pretty quickly. And so that's what we saw. That we're like, okay, we got this client that's paying 1,000, this one's 2, and this one's 10, and this one's this, and this one, all that. And we're like, suddenly we're like a quarter of the way to our monthly expenses. Mm-hmm. Then we're halfway, right? And then we're all the way. Mm-hmm. And then we're past all the way. And then we're like, oh, dang, I can go take a vacation for a minute and like, it'll be fine. Right. What's the likelihood that like everyone just vaporizes in a minute, right? Not unlikely, right? It's insurance. Like you're spreading out these investments across all these different clients who are paying you. And now like, I hate hearing those stories where someone's like, yeah, I had to shut down the business because I lost my largest client. Like we don't have any one largest client. I mean, we do have ones that are more represented than others, but at the end of the day, like it would take something like a pandemic to cause a big problem, which it could have, but we have a strategy for that too, right? So it was like, eggs in a basket, right? It's like, that's the idea.
Yeah. A lot of what you hear common talk is like diversifying your investments. And at the same time, I personally like to say diversify your incomes, right? Because in that exact example there, if you have the one big client that you're taking his paycheck to the bank every month and that's how you're surviving, it's like, well, he leaves and you're SOL. So you better go find the next one and start getting multiples. So that's amazing.
I love that. So you guys now, obviously, we talk about recurring, which I'm glad we touched base about that because John and I are big. We're just advocates and proponents of what people should be focused on as recurring income. But because now it does give you options. I think you guys are doing that now. You're kind of not in the business. You're working on the business, which I love, that conversation. But what's some of your goals now, things that are driving you guys or you guys are passionate about now to kind of continue to grow and kind of challenge yourselves?
Yeah, I'd say our big focus right now is both grow. Well, I mean, the three parts is growing our agency, but that's our leadership's team's responsibility. And then if there are things we can do to reflect on them that help, that's awesome. Attracting and finding new agencies or existing agencies that want help growing their business, more leads, more recurring revenue, monthly recurring revenue, greater than expenses. We love helping those folks. And then we're shouting from the rooftops, mountaintops right now about Funnel Hub, and for both from the agency's perspective of the business opportunity around that for agencies to help with Funnel Hub, right? And we teach them how to do that. And also just the general business owner and especially funnel-driven businesses that need help with this idea of funnels and Funnel Hub has been a big focus of ours. That's what's lighting us up. That's what we're doing. And we're having a lot of fun doing it.
That's awesome. So as we're getting close to the end of this podcast here, one of the questions that I like to ask is, we live in a day and age where we have a very unique opportunity. Technology has allowed us the opportunity to capture moments in time, and really provide a lot of value for people in the future. So there's going to be a day where we're all dead and gone, and people are going to still be able to access this video and see the kinds of amazing advice that you guys have to share. So if there was one piece of advice that you could each share in terms of the one thing that you would leave as really a message to humanity to make the most of your life, what would that be based on the culmination of all the experiences that you've had to this point?
You want to go first?
Go for it.
All right. I believe that business is a game that we get to play, right? But more importantly, it's a game that we each get to design. As entrepreneurs, as business owners, we are in charge of how our business works, right? And we've proven that to ourselves over and over again of we could do it like this, we could do it like that. We should have a funnel hub. Hey, we should charge monthly for websites, or we should build up our recurring revenue. And like there are very few limits, all things considered, about how to actually play the game. Now, I think a lot of us fool ourselves or trick ourselves into believing that there's like lots of constraints, but there's really, really not. And the days I've been most frustrated and angry and just like hating life are the days that I've forgotten that I'm actually in control of how the business works, right? And I think as time marches on, we tend to get like, we're creatures of habit. So we tend to do things the way we've always done them. And so if we can remember that we get to design this however the heck we want to design it, and if it's not serving you, if you're not loving it, if you're not making the money you want, then change something. But ultimately, it's as the business owner, you're responsible for that. You have to take personal responsibility to change the business. Nobody's going to step in and do it for you. You have to say what you want, declare what you want, and then take the actions and steps towards that. And if you're feeling stuck, you're the one that's got to get yourself out. And that shouldn't feel heavy. That should feel really inspiring because, gosh, I can do whatever I want. Imagine yourself like a kid who has a complete blank canvas, can do whatever the heck he or she wants, right? That opportunity is available to you every single day of the week. And don't forget it.
Awesome. So for me, it's probably just reflecting back on something Mike said where, I mentioned that I think that entrepreneurship is like the purest form of personal development, and just understanding that you're always going to be the bottleneck of your business, right? And if you really want your business to grow and scale, it's going to require investing time, resources in yourself, right? Not necessarily the latest tactic in digital marketing or sales or any of these things. No, there's some things going on in here that need to be worked on in order for you to continue to grow to that next level and that next level. Years back, Mike and I attended this leadership training, right? That we thought we were going to go in and learn a lot about business and business acumen and all this stuff. And it had absolutely zero to do with that. It was all about just reflecting on yourself, inner work, and all this other stuff, right? Which I think if they would have said that on the forefront, we probably would have not have gone to it, which is why they call it leadership training. But the point is that is leadership training, right? Because you are the leader in your business, and you need to be able to continue to hone those skills and figure out those roadblocks and rewrite those false beliefs and all those things that really exist in our subconscious that tend to hold us back, right? And we might not realize it.
Awesome. John, I can hang out with these guys they're pretty chill. Maybe because they're in Arizona and it's pretty warm out there. I don't get it. But AJ and Mike, I really appreciate you guys' time today and just your insights and just how you guys operate business. I love it. I think you guys are really hitting on all cylinders right now. And we're real excited to see you guys grow as you guys take off and do more bigger, better things. And actually met you guys, how we got to come to know you guys was through Mike's wife, Brenda. And she got personality than anybody I know. And she was good people. So I knew about Mike. He was good people. Then seeing you and AJ together, I know why you guys are doing so well. So I love it and really appreciate the time today.
Appreciate that so much, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah. So if you guys are able to share with our audience where it is that if they want to learn more about funnel hubs and how to do an agency, where they can find you and get that training.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple things I got for you. First, if you're like a business owner or like an agency owner that wants to know more about the funnel hub thing, we've got like a kind of a little micro training and wireframes that kind of go along with that. We've head over to funnelhub.com/choosecc for you guys to jump over in there, join our community, have a conversation. We hang out there and you'll have access to a lot of that stuff. So love to see you over there. If you're an agency owner, you get over to agencycoach.com/choosecc, and we'll have a bunch of training for the agencies in the room as well. So we're, like we said before, here to give, here to serve, and we believe in providing value. And if we can help kind of point you in the right direction and be that surgeon for you and your agency or your business, we're here to serve.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much again for your time today. I feel like there's a lot of value in this episode, and look forward to seeing what you guys are up to next. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.